If Steve wants to wake up and watch, he can.
That's a big negative.
All right. Bob Griese, of course, Hall of Famer, Dolphins, and longtime partner for Keith Jackson. The great Jackson passed away over the weekend at 89 years of age, the voice in college football for about 4 decades. And Bob says hello. Bob, long time no talk. It's a pleasure again. Christopher Russo, how are you today? Okay?
I'm doing well. How you doing?
Good to talk, Bob. Sad day, sad weekend. We get it. Nobody knows Keith probably as good as you, as humble a guy as you could want. And, no nonsense. Let the game be the game. Great broadcaster. Give me some thoughts here for a sec. Go ahead.
Well, he was a very sweet man. His personality on TV a lot of times their on-camera personality is different than they're a lot different off-camera, but not Keith. He was just as nice and sweet. We'd have dinner on Thursday nights, and if people would come over and talk and ask for his autograph, he was very accommodating. And that's just the way he was. That was his personality all along. He grew up in the farm in the hills of not the hills, but out in the country in Georgia. And then before he went to college, he actually went into the Marines.
Right. Yep.
He had to lie about his age a little bit, but he got into the Marines, and then after he got out of there, then he went to Washington State. Went through the Edward R. Murrow School of Broadcasting, worked a little bit in Seattle before he got the job with ABC Sports. So he was a good one. There are a lot of people going to be talking about Keith Jackson for a long time.
And Bobby got the break of all time, and probably at the time he didn't think so when they took him off the Monday night after the 1 year, gave it to Gifford, and Roone gave him the college football package. I think got away from Cosell. I'm not saying that negatively, but he did. He got away from Cosell. He can do the college football, and then as it turns out, ABC got a lot of packages. It probably wasn't viewed by Keith at the time as a positive career development, but I think at the end it turned out to be that way, getting off the Monday night crew. What's your take on that?
Well, Keith did a lot of different things. He did he could do anything. He did the Olympics. He did a lot of Olympics. He did ice skating. He did basketball. He did football. He did baseball. He could do golf, tennis, whatever. He was very simple in what he tried to do. His way of doing things was he said he wanted to amplify, he wanted to clarify, and he wanted to don't interrupt, don't intrude. And that's the way he broadcast the college games. I remember talking to him. I said, Keith, this Whoa Nelly stuff, he says, this is getting way out of hand there. Everybody is saying everywhere we go, every time they see us, they say, Whoa Nelly. I said, we ought to put that on a golf shirt or put it on a golf cap so we can make some extra money.
Right.
He said, no, I ain't going to do it. He said, I ain't doing that. He said, I ain't going to do it. So all he wanted to do was amplify, clarify, and don't interrupt.
First game, Bob, what was it? Was it Washington State, actually? When was the first game you did with Keith? Let me hear.
The first game was at the University of Washington, and he and I had been together for about a couple of weeks, and I remember we sat down to do the opening, and he said, okay, what do you want to do? I said, no. He said, you're the one that's into this. You're the one that's been this for a long time. We'll do it any way you want to do it, partner. I'd been with the NFL doing the NBC doing NFL games for 5 years, and then ABC came to me and they said, "Do we want you to do college football games?" And I said, "College? I've been in the pros for 20 years. I played for 15 and broadcast for 5, and then." They said, "Well, we want you to come over and work with Keith Jackson." I said, "Whoa, Nelly, that's a difference, sir."
So you end up at the University of Washington, and I had Jim Palmer on a TV show earlier today, and he said the great thing about Keith with the baseball was he basically deferred to the analyst and the ex-player. So Keith, who worked with, obviously, a guy like Palmer, worked with Reggie for a while, Reggie Jackson, did games with McCarver. He knew to get out of the way and let the expert do the analysis. Did you find the same scenario with you in college football, Bob?
Yeah, that's true. No, he would carry the load of the broadcast. He would get you in and out of commercials. He would do all of the promos and all this, that, and everything. But when it came to on the field or on the court or on the playing surface, he would defer to his partner. And you're right. That's the way he was, and that's why he was so good, because he didn't step out of his bounds and try to do something that he couldn't do. And that was, a lot of people say, Nelly, I said myself, Keith, where's this Whoa Nelly? Where did Nelly come from? And he said,
hey,
Nelly was the name of my mule. Nelly was the name of my mule back in Georgia.
Wow.
And he grew up on a farm, and he had a mule, and I guess that just caught on. Whenever he was broadcasting, he threw a something name in, and he went back to his youth, and there came out Nelly, and not many people knew that, but Nelly was his mule.
How about the Big House? He's the first to do the Big House. Bob, where'd that come from Michigan?
Well, we were in Michigan a lot. Back in the days, Michigan was very good before I got there with him, and then he also named the grandfather of them all. That was the Rose Bowl.
Granddaddy of them all. Yep.
He loved the Rose Bowl. The Rose Bowl. Of course, he lived in L.A. and he was a big fan of the Rose Bowl game, the Rose Bowl facility, and before he passed away a couple of years ago, they named the broadcast area at the Rose Bowl after Keith Jackson. It's now called the Keith Jackson broadcast area.
Wow. So, I mean, I know so the Big House, that was the name he came up with, too. Now, you went to Michigan, and your son was there, and I read a great story about the Washington State Rose Bowl game against Michigan. You were in the booth. Let me hear your take on that for a sec. Go ahead.
Well, so Brian's playing for Michigan. He's a senior. If you grew up in the Midwest like I did, growing up playing in the Rose Bowl is a huge deal. And I played. I was fortunate enough to play in the Rose Bowl when I went to Purdue. In fact, the Rose Bowl that Purdue played in 60. It was a 67, I think it was. It was the first Rose Bowl that Purdue ever played in.
Right.
So it was a big deal. We went out and we beat USC. And so anyway, so now here I am broadcasting the Rose Bowl almost every year with Keith Jackson. And this year, this 97 year, we're doing the Rose Bowl game with Brian, and my son is playing for Michigan, quarterback for Michigan. They're undefeated, ranked number 1 in the country. If they win the Rose Bowl game, they're going to win the national championship. And Keith's alma mater is Washington State. Now, Washington State has a quarterback by the name of Ryan Leaf, who at that time was the second best. He and Peyton Manning were the 2 top quarterbacks in college coming out.
Right.
So we played the game. Brian has a pretty good game, and late, there must be 30 seconds left to go in the ball game. Keith, the assistant there reaches over and hands Keith a 5x7 file card, which he does throughout the broadcast. I thought it was a promo or a lead commercial or something like that. So Keith looks at it and he holds on to it for a little while, and he comes out with this. He says, Whoa, Nelly. You want to know who the MVP is? I'm standing right next to his proud daddy.
Wow, that's a tremendous job. Wow. Did that bring a tear to your eye, Bob, or no?
You bet. I told, that's the only time I was at a loss for words. I said, Keith, you better take it from here because I can't talk.
Now, he left, he retired. I remember you throwing the confetti over him in the Gatorade at Michigan. He retired and they brought him back. Now, he probably wanted to go relax and not have to go back to work. Give me your thoughts on that for a sec. Let me hear.
Yeah, well, that was the last game he did. That was the bowl game out in Arizona, and I had to put some confetti, and he didn't know it. He thought it was water, and so at the end of the game, we dumped the confetti on him. But yeah, he retired for a year or so. He got tired of traveling across the mountains. He says. So he came back and worked for ABC for another, 6, 7, 8 years, but he only did West Coast games. He only did most of the Pac-10 games. And he said to me, he says, Griese, he says, you don't want to come out here and do that. He says, I enjoyed working with you all these years, but he says, you don't want to come out here every week. You'll get jet lag real quick. So we worked together, I don't know, it was 12 years, 13 years or something like that, but he was a great guy. And the last couple of years, I do radio work for the Dolphins now. We played the Rams and the Chargers in L.A. the last couple of years, and I was fortunate enough to have dinner with he and Turian the last couple of years, so I've seen him recently.
Now, good day. One last thing, Bob. Cosell used to step on his calls all the time in baseball. Poor, Chris Chambliss hits a home run. Cosell's all over it. Reggie hits 3 home runs. Cosell doesn't let Keith talk. Bobby Mercer hits a double down the left field line and win the game after Munson died. Keith can't talk. Cosell probably drove him crazy that first year in the Monday night booth. And now, Keith's got no ego. Did Howard drive him crazy? Did he ever bring that up to you?
No, he never brought it up, but I could imagine that happening because Keith is, like I said, he didn't. His way of broadcasting was not to impose himself into the broadcast in any way. He wanted to be there just to, like we said, he wanted to amplify, clarify, and don't intrude. These guys that wanted to do the opposite of that take over, thinks that I'm here doing this ball game and I'm going to be entertaining you while you're watching these kids play. That was not Keith's way of broadcasting.
Bob, it's a great job. He's a great broadcaster. You're a big part of his career there later on. Always a pleasure. Keep up the good work. Good to talk to you again. Appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, Chris.
Take care. Bob Griese, thoughts on the great Keith Jackson. Needed to get that on for you today. Gave you a little sense. Quarter in front of the hour. We continue here on Mad Dog Unleashed.